At exactly 10 in the morning, under a bright summer sun, a single father stood outside a small house with a moving truck parked in the driveway. His shirt was soaked with sweat, his hands were tired, and his 7-year-old son was sitting quietly on the front steps, watching him carry one heavy box after another. But the man wasn't moving his own belongings. He was helping the woman who had once been his family, and the sister of the woman who had broken his heart. He had every reason to walk away. He had every reason to say no. Yet, when she needed help, he came. And before that long summer afternoon was over, she would look into his tired eyes and say 7 words that would change everything: "I should have chosen you back then." If you believe that kindness can heal old wounds and that sometimes people deserve a second chance, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to Life-Changing Stories for more emotional stories about love, kindness, and second chances. The man's name was Everett Hale, a 36-year-old father who had learned how quickly life could change. 5 years earlier, Everett had been married to a woman named Maribel. They had a small house, a little boy named Kieran, and what Everett believed was a happy life. But Maribel had slowly grown distant. She began coming home late, spending more time away from the family, and avoiding the conversations Everett tried desperately to have. Eventually, she left him and their son, claiming that she needed a different life. The divorce was painful, but Everett never allowed his son to hear him speak badly about his mother. He simply worked harder, came home tired, cooked simple dinners, helped Kieran with homework, and became both parents in the little boy's world. Over the years, Everett rebuilt his life piece by piece. He worked as a maintenance supervisor at a local hotel, a job that wasn't glamorous but paid the bills. Every morning, he prepared breakfast for Kieran before school. Every afternoon, he rushed home so he could be there when his son returned. His life was simple, but he had learned to appreciate simple things. A warm meal. A clean home. His son's laughter. A peaceful night without arguments. Then, one Tuesday morning, Everett received a phone call from someone he never expected to hear from again. It was Maribel's younger sister, Serafina. She was moving out of her apartment and needed help. Her landlord had sold the building, and she had only a few days to move into a small rented house across town. She had no family nearby, no money for professional movers, and no one else to call. Everett stared at his phone for several seconds after the call ended. Serafina had always been different from Maribel. She had never treated Everett badly, but after the divorce, she had disappeared from his life too. Everett wondered why she was calling him now. He could have easily said he was busy. He could have reminded her that she was Maribel's sister and that he was no longer part of their family. Instead, he looked toward the kitchen, where Kieran was eating cereal before school, and remembered something his mother had once told him: helping someone doesn't mean you forget what they did. It means you refuse to become bitter because of it. So Everett agreed. That Saturday morning, the sun was already high when Everett arrived at Serafina's apartment with his old pickup truck. Kieran came along, wearing a baseball cap and carrying a small backpack. Serafina opened the door and looked surprised to see them both. She had expected Everett to come alone, but she didn't complain. She simply stepped aside and let them in. The apartment was almost empty. Boxes covered the floor, but Serafina looked exhausted. Her eyes were swollen, and there was a sadness in her face that Everett hadn't seen before. She explained that the move had happened suddenly and that everything had become overwhelming. Everett didn't ask too many questions. He simply rolled up his sleeves and started working. For the next several hours, he carried boxes, lifted furniture, and carefully loaded everything into the truck. Kieran helped by carrying smaller bags and bringing bottles of water to the adults. Serafina kept apologizing for the trouble, but Everett only smiled and told her that everyone needed help sometimes. As the morning turned into afternoon, something strange began to happen. Serafina started remembering the man Everett had been before the divorce. She remembered how he had always fixed broken things instead of throwing them away. She remembered how he used to bring groceries to her parents when they were struggling. She remembered how, even during the worst moments of his marriage, he never blamed anyone in front of Kieran. And now, years later, that same man was standing in the hot sunlight, helping her without asking for anything in return. When they finally reached the new house, the hardest part of the move began. The house was small and nearly empty. Everett carried the sofa through the front door while Serafina directed him where to place it. Kieran found a corner for his own little box of toys, and for the first time that day, Serafina laughed. But then Everett noticed something on the floor near the doorway. It was a photograph in a broken wooden frame. He picked it up and froze. It was an old family picture taken years ago. Everett, Maribel, Serafina, and several family members were standing together at a holiday gathering. Everett remembered that day clearly. He had been smiling beside Maribel, believing they would grow old together. Serafina saw the photograph in his hand, and her smile disappeared. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Serafina quietly admitted that she had kept the picture because it reminded her of the time when everything still felt whole. She said she had watched her sister walk away from Everett and Kieran, and although she had never said it aloud, she had always believed Maribel had made the biggest mistake of her life. Everett looked down at the photograph and gently placed it on a table. He told her that people make choices, and sometimes those choices hurt others. But he had learned that you can't spend your whole life standing in the doorway of the past, waiting for someone to come back. Serafina's eyes filled with tears. She told Everett that she had spent years watching him rebuild his life. She had seen how he raised Kieran, how he worked, how he stayed kind even after being hurt. And that day, as he helped her move under the bright afternoon sun, she realized something that frightened her. She had been looking at the wrong person all those years. Then she whispered the words Everett never expected to hear. "I should have chosen you." Everett stood completely still. The sentence carried years of regret, but Everett knew she wasn't talking about romance alone. She was talking about all the times she had watched him struggle and never reached out. She was talking about the kindness she had taken for granted. She was talking about the possibility of a different life that might have existed if circumstances had been different. Everett gently told her that she didn't need to carry someone else's regret. He had already made peace with his past. Serafina wiped her tears and smiled sadly. She told him that perhaps she had not lost him after all. Perhaps life had simply waited until both of them were ready to understand what mattered. Everett didn't answer immediately. He looked outside at Kieran, who was playing with a small toy truck in the driveway. The sun was shining brightly, and for the first time in years, Everett felt something he had almost forgotten existed. Hope. Not the kind of hope that promises everything will suddenly become perfect, but the quiet kind that says tomorrow might be better than yesterday. Over the following weeks, Serafina slowly became part of Everett and Kieran's life. She never tried to replace anyone. She never rushed Everett. She simply showed up. She helped Kieran with school projects, brought dinner when Everett worked late, and most importantly, she became someone they could trust. Everett eventually understood that second chances don't always mean returning to the past. Sometimes they mean building something new from the lessons the past taught you. Months later, on another bright summer afternoon, Everett watched Kieran ride his bicycle down the sidewalk while Serafina stood beside him. She reached for his hand, and this time Everett didn't pull away. He looked at the life he had built and realized that his greatest blessing had not been the life he lost. It had been the courage to keep going after losing it. And perhaps that was the real meaning of second chances. Sometimes, kindness doesn't erase the past. Sometimes, it simply gives the future a chance. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes that good people deserve another chance, and subscribe to life-changing stories. Your support helps these stories reach more people who may need a little hope in their lives. And before we end, I want you to do something special. In the comments, write, "Kindness gives second chances," if you believe that one act of kindness can completely change someone's life. Because you never know what someone is carrying inside. The person you help today may remember your kindness for the rest of their life. And sometimes, the person standing in front of you isn't asking you to fix their past. They're simply hoping you'll help them believe in a better tomorrow.